Tom Galvin. I'm glad to be part of the new LD24, and I look forward to working with you over the next few years. And I'm here to talk to you about two different topics, the 204, Prop 204 that's on the ballot this year, as well as the Corporation Commission. And a little bit of background about myself. I want to echo Jose's words. I'm a native of New York City, but I was born in Honduras in Central America. So there are a lot more Hispanic Republicans out there than the media would like us to believe. And I see that the future president is here, but I wonder where the empty chair is. So we should have that next to Romney. But first, before I get to the Corporation Commission candidates, because I'm actually the policy advisor to Brenda Burns at the Corporation Commission, I want to talk to you about Prop 204. And our great state treasurer, Doug Ducey, is out there on the hustings talking about this. And simply put, it's bad for education and it's bad for our kids. And there are 5 reasons that I'm going to give you tonight. 1, it's a permanent tax. 2, there's no accountability and there's just simply no reform. 3, I'm going to talk about the funding that's not related to education. 4, I'm going to talk about the bad public policy that Prop 204 is about. And 5, I'm going to talk to you about the truth about spending per pupil, because we always hear about how Arizona is so terrible about it. So the first topic on the permanent tax, and I'm sure you've heard this, but this is a $1 billion sales tax that's going to be imposed on us annually. This is not a one-time thing. We're going to be paying an extra $1 billion every year. And Arizona would be the second highest tax state in the country behind Tennessee. But in Tennessee, they don't have an income tax. So we have a sales tax and we have an income tax. The third item is that several Arizona cities and towns will be taxed at over 10%. And that's just not right. We cannot deal with that, especially in this economy under this president. The second thing is about how there's no accountability and there's no reform. There are almost no guaranteed dollars attached to reforms or to achievements by our kids or attached to our teachers. The money will go basically to be soaked up by the bureaucracy. Less than 10% of Prop 204 is tied to performance. This is basically no strings attached money going out of your pocket, out of your neighbor's pockets, and out of our kids' education into the bureaucracy. And the worst thing of all that I think is that this treats the good schools the same way as the bad schools. Successful schools will get the same amount of funding as the bad schools because there's just no metrics to determine how well our kids are being educated. Here's the other part about Prop 204 that's not at all related to education. This is filled with pork by special interests. There are $100 million slated to go to road contractors. $100 million every single year. And who's paying for Prop 204? The road contractors. Exactly. So they're paying a few $100,000 for this campaign, airing commercials with teachers, but they're funding it. I used to work in commercial real estate. I know what a good return on investment is. So, and I think all of us do here too. It's simple math. If you spend a few $100,000 to get back $100 million a year, that's a pretty good rate of return. That's a pretty good ROI. So, once again, this is bad public policy. This freezes our tax code, and it removes any way statutorily that we can change the sales tax. This is just locked in. Legislature can't touch it. And worst of all, this breaks a promise to Arizona taxpayers who voted for this temporary sales tax just a couple of years ago. And we were all told, if you vote for this now because we're in such dire straits, don't worry about it, it's temporary, it's going to go away. Well, what's happening? Now they're making it permanent. And they're telling you that if you don't vote for it, you're against kids. But this is your money that they want, and they want to put in their pockets, or they want to put in the bureaucracy, and they're not going to help out our kids. And finally, spending. We always hear about how Arizona is terrible about spending for its kids. Here are the facts. In 2001, we were spending $6 billion in education. In 2011, we spent $9.6 billion. That increase is 61%. That's a 61% increase over 10 years. That's higher than inflation, and that's higher than growth that we saw in Arizona. Secondly, we always hear about spending per pupil. It's pretty low. In 2001, spending per pupil was $7,000. This year, $9,200. So spending per pupil has gone up. But if this passes, our sales tax will go up, the number of dollars for the bureaucracy will go up, but there's no measurable way of knowing how our kids are doing in school. So everyone in this room we're basically evangelists, right? We have to get out there and talk to our friends and talk to our neighbors and talk to them, especially if you hear a friend say, I think I'm going to vote for 204, it sounds good. We have to tell them no. And for the 5 reasons we went over tonight, I think if we do that, we're convincing people that we're not anti-education, we're pro-kids. So that's it for 204. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Question 2. How much of that money is earmarked for the public safety unions, for the firefighters and the police?
You know, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know all the facts, but I do know that the NEA, the National Education Association, a major teachers union, has put in $250,000 from out of state into Arizona to get this passed.
Right. And that last number you mentioned, $9 billion, was that just general fund, or does that take into consideration all of the outside federal funding Arizona gets?
I believe it's state funding. Yeah,
Okay.
State funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would ask that you look at the figure that takes into consideration the entire amount of money that we spend.
Right.
Because it's a lot bigger than that.
Right.
Okay?
And the operative thing is this is a $1 billion sales tax every year.
Right.
No measurable metrics of knowing how our kids are doing. Second thing I want to talk about is the Arizona Corporation Commission, which is my day job where I work. I work for Brenda Burns, and we have 3 races up for election this year. 2 incumbent Democrats, 1 incumbent Republican. The slate will have 3 on each side. So for the Republicans, we have Bob Stump, the incumbent. We have Bob Burns, former Senate president, and we have Susan Bittersmith, who's on the CAP board. The Democratic opponents are Marsha Bushing, Paul Newman, who's an incumbent, and Sandra Kennedy, who's an incumbent. And I can tell you, I know the Corporation Commission doesn't get a lot of news, but there's a lot happening in that building. And these Democrats who are at the Corporation Commission do not care about your utility rates. They are pushing solar at all costs. Now, we can argue about the merits of solar, and solar does have merits. There's a lot of good things about renewables, especially in Arizona. But solar at all costs is a big problem. It's very expensive. It's more expensive than coal. It's more expensive than natural gas. It's more expensive than nuclear. We have a huge nuclear power plant here in Palo Verde. We've heard about the revolution in fracking with natural gas. But we also know that coal is pretty cheap too, and there's a lot of jobs in Arizona that depend on coal, including the Navajo Generating Station. But thanks to President Obama, the EPA is regulating coals to be out of existence. We haven't had a nuclear power plant built in this country in basically 35 years. And you hear a lot of stuff in the news about natural gas, even though it is infinitely cheaper than it ever has been before. But if you're Paul Newman, or if you're Sandra Kennedy, the Corporation Commission, it's a one-trick pony question. They only want solar. Brenda Burns and Gary Pierce were elected 2 years ago. They are holding the line on these guys. They are fighting back because the solar industry is very powerful, and they're always there at the Corporation Commission. We have a great incumbent, Bob Stump, who needs to be reelected, but we also need to add to the team. We need to get Kennedy and Newman out, and we need to bring in Susan Bittersmith and Bob Burns. Yep. Also, when it comes to water rates, you know, when we are building more solar, the electric rates for the water companies actually increases. So the water rates are affected. So it all trickles down. And last year we had an implementation plan here last December, and Bob Stump, who's running for re-election, put an amendment to take $17 million from APS and give it back to the ratepayers. And this is on the record, I can tell you this, that Paul Newman said, I don't think the $17 million should necessarily go back to the ratepayers. He wants to go to the solar folks, and that's wrong. So I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions about the CorpCom, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'm not sure I understood this correctly, but are you not a new PC?
Yes, I am.
New PC.
Okay.
New PC. Very good.
Xavier.
We are very, very
North.
happy. So proud of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, I have charts and fact sheets if you guys want to grab them for 204. I brought a lot, so thanks a lot.
And then Colleen has stuff